All right, so welcome everyone. Today we have on two special guests, one returning guest, Dark Forest Capital, and a new guest, CloudedMind. Um, Welcome, guys. Today we want to talk some mostly around ETH, get some thoughts around where you guys think ETH is at the moment, and what sort of ETH needs to sort of come back into the spotlight a bit. I think it's been beaten down well beyond reasonable doubt at this point in time. But maybe just to start things off, Clouded, do you want to give us a bit of background on yourself and um, how you got into crypto?
Yeah, definitely. GM guys, and thanks for having me on tonight. Nice to jump on a podcast every now and then. So, to give you some background on myself, where do I start? Basically, got into crypto a while back, um, maybe the just before the 2017 bull run. And I was introduced to the space through my network security lecturer in university, who actually was at the time, which is very early on, an ETH 2.0 developer. So kind of went off syllabus and taught us Bitcoin and blockchain and consequently Ethereum. And at the time, I was working in a bank, so I kind of like had a very good fundamental understanding of finance and the economy and how money works. And I was pretty doomer about the whole situation, getting to the bottom of how messed up the financial space is. So when I basically learned about the technical innovations behind crypto and Bitcoin and Ethereum specifically, it kind of blew my mind because I saw the massive, like, not even just product market fit, but like revolutionary global product that it is, and went all in at that time, like not just from a investment perspective, but from like dedicating my essentially life, like to researching, contributing, even trying to build. But yeah, I've been pretty deep in the space ever since. In 2021, I think it was, I started this anonymous or pseudo anonymous clouded account as my main persona in the space. Before that, I was kind of just like pretty doxed, semi doxed, but it was very early days of Ethereum back then too. So it was a much smaller community. And I chose to be anonymous for branding purposes and to kind of uphold like traditional crypto and even internet values and advocate for anonymous culture, which I felt was being degraded and attacked. And it definitely is. So trying to, hold this flag strong. And over the years, contributed to so many protocols and projects. I've also done a fair share of education and onboarding. I used to run daily spaces actually in the last bull run, and I guess in terms of crypto, my journey has always really been towards real DeFi. It's the thing that really got my attention. I think DeFi is the killer application for this space, and I've actually spent a lot of the last 2 3 years doing research into specifically DeFi credit and insurance, and a few other things, including stablecoins, and have been trying to build in the space myself, and have built a few things actually. Um, so yeah, with the recent bull market, just been trying to do what I normally do in every cycle: build investment theses, invest, make the right bets, and even build. So that's a bit of background on myself.
That's really wholesome.
Nice.
I like
Okay.
how you said that you gave yourself like an anonymous identity to match like the ethos of what was being built in the space at the time, because it meant that it was more based on your work output rather than your identity, which is contrast to what I thought. I actually thought you were a billionaire, and that's why you have an anonymous ID. You were sort of just like trying to hide the fact that you were really wealthy. So I got that one wrong. So there you go.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish you were right on that one.
Nice,
Nice.
nice.
So just a question here. You obviously mentioned building and that. Did you have much of a background in computer science? Do you code or do you like what's your sort of like main sort of
Yeah,
contribution side?
Definitely. I do have a background in computer science. So I studied a computer science degree in university, and I did work in the IT industry for a bit. I did the whole corporate ladder stuff for a couple of years in my early 20s. And in terms of building, actually, like I have done code. I did code previously, and I have done code very recently too. But I wouldn't classify myself as mainly a developer. I know enough code that gets me by,
Yeah.
but I think my real expertise, especially as of recent in the past couple of years, falls around financial engineering. So um, kind of, it's very hard to explain, but math and game theory behind finance itself, um,
Yeah.
and how to design financial products, uh, especially in this space, is a unique thing. So it does involve like quant work and such. So I think most of my work that I do is around financial modeling and engineering for the DeFi stuff that I've worked on.
Nice.
And the code just goes as far as testing and modeling and some solidity for some stuff. But I work with some very good smart contract developers that I'm happy for them to take the most of that stuff on. So yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, in DeFi, what is there like a particular application or something that really like clicked for you when it first came out? That was like, oh, this is the thing.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I think like from very early on, the one thing in DeFi that blew me away was and Maker. Like Maker came a bit before it, but honestly, the just the innovation of credit was really
Mm.
it. Uniswap, I definitely saw it. It almost felt too obvious, like Uniswap, like being able to trade on chain, but the way they innovated on like AMM was really nice
Mm.
and whatnot. But what really got my attention was credit markets. Um, and yeah, credit in particular is definitely much more of an expertise of mine and what really intrigued me into DeFi. And everything I've done kind of builds atop the core principles of how credit works in finance and how it can be used. So I think money markets and CDPs specifically and stablecoins are a part of that because most stablecoins are issued out of credit. So that's what really got my attention in DeFi and what I'm very interested and well versed in.
Awesome.
Nice. Is that like part of the reason why you were interested in building IMF in the first place? Um, and if you could help the audience understand what the International Money Fund is, or no, pardon me, the International Meme Fund um, is, that would be cool.
Yeah, definitely. So the International Meme Fund is a idea that came around myself and a few of close friends in the space, kind of bantering around something to build this cycle. I initially started off trying to build something very serious around an innovative way of doing credit with insurance in the space, but uh, like yeah, I kept hitting obstacles and it wouldn't go anywhere. I was really trying to invent something new
Mm,
and kept kind of like blowing that idea up. And that was the first time in my life that I, on a tangent now, just went down the route of actually inventing something
yeah.
and really innovating. And like it's definitely a thing of its own. But to bring it back, I did get a bit burnt out from that research and invention type of loop. And then kind of like was a bit burnt on the building side. And then this idea came around and it is it has parts of it that's innovative, but it's nothing crazy new because
Yeah.
it builds on top of what primitives have already been done in DeFi. What
Yeah.
it does is IMF identifies a gap in the market. So our whole thesis was that we got in on memes early. We believe memes were going to do very well this cycle, and so far they have.
Mm,
I wrote a whole article on how memes would outperform because of a core thesis of mine, which is market reflexivity.
yeah.
To give a
Mm-hmm.
highlight, I think like last cycle and the previous cycle, too many teams failed to deliver. Too many VCs were abusing retail, and too many users got like abused and burnt from the crypto market. So I foresaw the pendulum swinging in the other direction, where there is very low dependency, very low risk on external parties, and
Yeah.
meme coins were like the epitome of that being born out of this cycle. And as memes were doing well and this thesis was playing out, I kind of just thought, like, why not build into this narrative that's going on? And
Yeah.
the gap that we kind of identified was that any natural liquid market, the evolution for it is financial rails, like it is DeFi. Ethereum was around 20 billion market cap when around 10 to 20 billion market cap when Maker launched in December 2017, and you know, like it was quite volatile. It was very liquid, but it was still quite a nascent asset at the time. And I took a view of like PEPE, for example, and PEPE is like a unique asset right now in this cycle where it's consistently hitting extremely high trading volumes. It's very liquid. It doesn't trade at a discount at all on OTC desks with size.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in the top 100, it is outperforming basically every coin except for like the top 5, which is BTC, Sol, and maybe like some other stuff. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a standout asset, and I believe this is an asset that deserves access to liquidity and financial rails. Like the but the market views memes as this high risk, you know, kind of joke.
Unserious money.
Yeah,
Sort of thing.
non-serious like asset. So there's no chance that like Maker or Aave open up a Pepe market, and deservedly so. Like they have their own, like they're trying to target a serious like type of product market fit and whatnot. So I don't expect them to, but if they don't, then that's a market gap. So the IMF kind of was born out of the thesis that there's going to be a long tail of these meme coins that accrue a lot of liquid value this cycle,
Yeah.
and they deserve as much as any other coin to have access to DeFi because that's what this space is all about. So we built the IMF, which broadly speaking is just a CDP for memes, which allows you to mint a crypto native stablecoin against your meme coins and do whatever you like with that. You can use it to leverage, to hedge, to take profits. Many ways you can use the protocol, but it is the DeFi ecosystem for memes, and it's doing quite well. We built it in a very DeFi way. We built it publicly. We did a public raise, and we are continuing to build. Obviously, the market's gone against us right now, but there's some ideas of iterations and further types of bets that we can make with this to see if we can conjure some attention in TVL, and hopefully, you know, the IMF does well this cycle along with the memes.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. That was awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, that's really cool. Dark, did you have any things to chime in on the meme coin side of things?
Yeah, Dark, heard you were a big believer in meme coins.
One thing that'd be interesting for me, Clouded, is like, do you think that we can get under collateralized loans and sort of bring that on chain? I know there's been a few attempts with stuff like Maple, and now you've got Wildcat, but these are all seemingly pretty manual, and then the smart contract just deals with like the parties once it's actually deployed. Have you seen anything that gets around that and sort of automates this process even more, or do you think it's always going to have that human element and some kind of level of like manual diligence?
So
And I've bored him to death already.
No.
Sorry.
I'm here. I'm lagging as much as ETH is these days. So,
Well, hey.
that is a really good question. Actually, I did a whole bunch of research on that particular question. Like, is under-collateralization even possible in a permissionless environment? And there's two answers to this. The first answer is abruptly no, but it doesn't need to be. And the second answer is there's actually no such thing as under-collateralization. So I'll just quickly touch on that second answer. So from my research, every single thing in every credit aspect of the world is actually fully collateralized. It's just collateralized in different ways. It might not be collateralized by an asset, but the most traditional form of non-collateralized debt in society is like a credit card, for example, right? You believe that that is a non-collateralized loan, but in fact, it is collateralized. It's collateralized by your credit score and your promise of future revenue. Like when you take out a credit card, you have to prove income, and you get a limit on that credit card based on income. So they're making a claim, they're collateralizing the credit that they're giving you today on a claim on future income. And that's possible in a traditional sense because the bank has legal teams that can go after you, and you have to do KYC. So they can enforce this type of like, I don't want to use this word, but they can enforce this violence against you if you don't meet the terms of that credit. So it is still collateralized. Home loans are fully over collateralized. You can't take out a loan that's worth more than the property. Even if you take it to like a nation level, even the US is technically like they're printing money out of thin air, but that thin air, it is collateralized by their military might and their ability to influence and control certain things. So there is a collateralization there. Now, that collateralization that I've mentioned is not possible in a permissionless environment because you have what's called a Sybil type of attack, where because in a fully permissionless space, you can be completely anonymous. No one can go after you. There's no KYC. There's no nothing. That's why we have to have financial asset collateralization in a fully permissionless environment. And that brings me back to my first answer here, which is no, you cannot have under collateralized loans in fully permissionless DeFi, but you don't need to, because I believe that from my research, there is a lot of ways where even 100% collateralization is possible. So like very capital efficient collateralization. And in most cases, there's a few external things that need to be innovated on to basically make a very capital efficient collateralization possible. So insurance will play a part in that, and other things will play a part in that. But I do believe that very capital efficient collateralization is going to be possible in DeFi, if not already. And I don't actually think that under collateralization needs to happen in DeFi. I hope that kind of hit on a few things.
Yeah, man, that was a fantastic answer. I guess because collateralization is one of those things that you hear about, you know about, and if you use DeFi, you kind of figure out how it works. But yeah, what you just said explains a lot about where we might go and why. I didn't think about the fact that nothing is actually under collateralized really, apart from your credit card. So most of the stuff that you deal with in real life even has something like measured against it that is worth as much or more than the loan that you're taking out. So yeah, good answer.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just say one last thing. So there's a law of credit where credit is recognized in a framework of 5 C's. The 5 C's are character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. And the best left curve that I made for myself when doing like this DeFi research was that in traditional finance, in the Web 2 world, all 5 C's are used to issue credit. But in a permissionless setting, we are only limited to 3 C's. We do not have the character or the capacity, which is basically character comes down to KYC. You don't know who you're dealing with. And capacity comes down to like future income proof and such like that. So those things cannot be done on chain in a fully permissionless way. So we're limited to only 3 C's for credit there. And that's why maybe something like a credit card is not able to be done in a fully permissionless setting.
I think stuff like on-chain, your on-chain actions and history is still not enough to lean on to cover the character aspect, because it can still be gamed.
Yeah, I think it'll come a long way, but the Sybil resistance is still there. Like you can build up an on-chain reputation and credit score anonymously and against the wallet, but you can still attack on a long enough time frame. You build it up and then you end up taking out a bigger loan. It's still in your benefit to not pay that back and then just start another. Like if it's fully permissionless, you cannot on a long enough time frame count on character or capacity, because there's no way to go after the person. You can't actually get the character or capacity in real life unless KYC is involved, which then is not fully permissionless.
Yep, makes sense.
That makes sense. That makes sense. What are your thoughts around, like, Vitalik's been obviously there was a tweet thread the other day around his feelings around DeFi, and there was a bit of criticism thrown his way around him not embracing DeFi, like things like Aave and loans, etc. And I think one of the topics was, around the difference between under-collateralized and collateralized loans. Sort of looping back to Ethereum here, do you think that the sort of side of Ethereum not embracing that has not allowed it to move as fast as it possibly could do in the ecosystem, since it seems to be really builder driven rather than, as in DeFi builder driven, rather than sort of being embraced by the Foundation themselves, and sort of promoting it from that side?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I have a few thoughts on this, and I got into a bunch of heated debates on Twitter around that, actually, with the EF. And like on the EF topic alone, I actually think the EF is great. Like, objectively speaking, they're amazing. Like, Ethereum wouldn't be where it is without them. I don't think they're anti-DeFi. They definitely do not support it in the way that, like, me personally, I would want them to support it and endorse it. And obviously, a lot of DeFi builders do share this sentiment. Kane from Synthetics and Internex, like, he's constantly said how the EF is anti-DeFi, and I do agree with a lot of his takes. And I think, like, I think it doesn't matter. It would be fucking great if they just endorse it and talk about it, because it's quite obvious that the number one value add and differentiator for Ethereum being extremely successful in Ethereum, value flowing through to ETH, the asset itself, is DeFi. So it's kind of absurd to me that these guys don't get it. Some of them do. I think Justin Drake is probably one of the few on the EF that absolutely sees the pathway through ETH value accrual and DeFi. In terms of Vitalik and maybe like Dankrad and others that on Twitter were kind of saying, yeah, it's great, but like there's other things that we also need to focus on. Like, I get that side of the argument. I don't think they're anti-DeFi. I also think maybe, when you're so hyper-focused on a certain aspect of something, like, these guys are very hyper-focused on architecture and innovation in how to do specific. They're more focused on the D. Like, there's DeFi, right? Like, they're more focused on the D. They're not focused on the Phi, and that came out really bad now that I'm saying it. But
well, we've all seen Vitalik's D, so it makes sense.
Of course. But finance is this, like, man, finance, when you get to the core of finance, it is a very, like, complicated thing to figure out, Like, finance does things in the real world, like, that people have no idea, that they're like, loans are made off of financial products being made, like exotic options being created just to finance a company so that it can stay alive, right? Like, finance does a lot more. It is not this closed loop like they are explaining it to be. And that argument that they had about the Ouroboros is completely wrong, because as long as there is even one flow of either borrowed money out of the system or net money coming into the system to do a borrow operation, it's not a closed loop. Like, that is fundamentally wrong. So I disagreed with a few of the things they said, but also I don't think it's fair to hold someone or a group of people that are specialized in a specific thing, which is very much like blockchain architecture and whatever crazy, insanely hard, like, physics that they're building to push Ethereum forward. It's not fair to expect them to fully understand finance as it is too. So, like, I think, and I ultimately think that it doesn't actually matter what the EF says or does or doesn't do. Ultimately, the market is the market, and it will dictate based on supply, demand, capital, everything. And I am one of the believers that thinks that regardless of even if the EF doesn't support or even doesn't endorse, which they don't not endorse, they just don't endorse wholeheartedly. DeFi is going to make it. Like DeFi is it, and yeah. So that's my take. Sorry for stumbling over my words so much.
No, that makes sense. Luis?
I'm just trying to think where I heard this before I butcher their interpretation, but I did hear that potentially the early adoption of DeFi, just as Clouded was talking about MakerDAO launching when ETH was around. Did you say 20 billion, or was that when the value of ETH when MakerDAO launched?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like from my memory, like obviously it's a while back, but I'm pretty sure ETH was around the 20 bill mark when Maker was like launching and stuff.
Yeah, because I've heard the argument that if it wasn't for DeFi, the like amount of fees that were burnt with ETH for the use of DeFi may not have propelled ETH into the higher valuation that it currently is. And so for Vitalik to turn around and be like, yeah, look, I'm not the biggest believer in this, might come across in the sense that he's just like kind of shitting on the one thing that drove a lot of the value to ETH in the first place, which was a lot of the creation of DeFi and the wealth effect that that had for ETH itself, as well as a lot of the early DeFi adopters. So I kind of took it with a pinch of salt when he came out and said that he was sort of like, yeah, I'm not like the biggest believer in it, because I generally think that DeFi is probably the last line of defense that you use to convince people why you are in this industry. You know, like they're like, oh, what are you doing in crypto? It's like, ah, well, you know, they're trying to do this whole thing called decentralized finance. You know what that is? Yeah, that's the thing that keeps me around, not these meme coins that make everyone rich. It's the good stuff. So yeah, so I think Kane said it pretty well on Steady Lads. He said Vitalik's sort of like he's only human, like he's not perfect. He can come across like not actually understanding what the real use case is for Ethereum, even if he's one of the biggest believers and creators of it. And yeah, I think that people that are still trying to build DeFi applications in Ethereum, given that Vitalik's not the biggest fan of it, is pretty cool to me. So
I agree. Yeah, I said the same. Like, yeah, it's unfair to expect this of people that are also like completely entrenched in a different field. They're not necessarily finance people at all. They might not even ironically understand like capital or economics as well as like a lot of the DeFi builders do. But yeah, I think DeFi is the only reason. Yeah, ironically, before ICOs, Ethereum was just another coin. Like smart contracts were like an idea, and it's like, oh yeah, like you can do stuff, and it was just another altcoin. And then suddenly people started like issuing tokens on it, and not only issuing tokens, but raising money to issue a token with a promise of building a product. And that kind of revolutionized one aspect, which is like capital raising, and it democratized it in a way that you could go publicly to the market, not needing VCs, et cetera, cutting out middlemen, kind of actually seeing the promise of blockchain happening. And then ICOs really picked up, and that's the first time people were like, oh, ETH is actually different to like Bitcoin and everything else. And then shortly after ICOs, like towards 2020, obviously Uniswap launched before that, but like towards 2020 when more of the proper DeFi like CDP protocols and even some more spicy stuff started launching, was when people saw that you can actually build full-fledged financial applications without like literally making banks redundant and making VCs redundant, making like a lot of these traditional financial services completely redundant. Like that is a huge sector. And that was the first real PMF. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, nice. Now, how do we fix Ethereum? Like, people's sentiment on it is so fucking bad.
Just before you answer that, Clouded, Dark, could you explain to me the financy side of what you? No, well, explain to all of us. But you were talking about how to value Ethereum as like a tech stock, and then talking about how it was like trading it 100 times a multiple for its revenue that created, or something like that. You had like a really good perspective on it. I just wanted you to elaborate on that, if that's okay. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, sure. I mean, so Clouded, selfishly, it was actually my request to get you on the podcast because over the last sort of year, the algo on Twitter has fed me you and a guy called Waz Crypto. And I think you two have quickly become like my favorite follows because you go out there and you destroy people that are being disingenuous, and you put across like really good takes, thoughtful takes. You back them with actual like data. So there'll be a few questions that I want to fire at you as part of this, I think. But when I was talking to Swiss about it, is basically what we've seen in the last few weeks and months is people, especially the TradFi guys that have come in and started to look at the ETFs now, are talking about, and then the Solana boys have picked up on this as well. Like, how do you value an L1 asset? And I think there's broadly two camps. You can look at it as having this like monetary premium, which is really nebulous and hard to define. But Bitcoin clearly has it, and that's what's keeping it aloft at these prices. And then what you have with networks like Ethereum and Solana is you have transaction fees or a level of burn. So you can actually start to calculate something that looks like a price to earnings multiple. So what I was saying to Swiss is, well, in traditional finance, if you look at the S&P 500, the average of that multiple across the top 500 stocks tends to be somewhere around 23x. And, obviously, sometimes it's more expensive than that, and sometimes it's less expensive than that, and each stock is obviously different as well. But if you started to value ETH based on that, then it's incredibly overvalued, even for an asset that you think can grow. Then you start to look at how it's actually pushed away a lot of that revenue generation to its L2s, which was supposed to sort of be this Jevon paradox where you build these super fast, super cheap highways, and they get used so much that actually increases the revenue overall, and that still gets stamped back onto Ethereum, and that's where it picks up the revenue, like ultimately. But that's not happening. So I haven't been on like a Twitter tirade about this, but I do try and retweet occasionally. Is like, I don't think we should let these guys tell us how to value our coins, because if they do, the game is over. Because pretty much 90% of things are going to go down 90%, which they do anyway. But then a few things like Aave and some like fundamental plays, maybe like TG bots, might sort of take that place because they're actually generating real revenue. And that's where you'll flip from the fat app or the fat layer one to the fat app thesis. So my question to you, I guess, is there's a lot to unpack there, but it's like, I've seen you rise as a bit of a Ethereum defender, and it would just be good to hear about like, what's your thesis on ETH? Why do you support it and outwardly defend it? And how do you think it should be valued?
Yeah, and appreciate the nice comments, man. I'll definitely find you and follow you back if I haven't already on Twitter. So thank you.
Cool. That's what I was mainly doing it for, was to get a follow-up. So it's all good.
No, I respect it. So yeah, look, this question that you asked, it's multifaceted, and it's basically like at the very core of a big reason of, I guess, debate and doubt in the entirety of cryptocurrency, not just the Ethereum ecosystem right now. And I agree with a lot of your takes. So firstly, I agree with, we shouldn't let these people come in and tell us how to value these assets, like TradFi, of course not. Do I think there's a place for those types of like models, like PDE and whatever? Probably. Maybe even more so on dApps like Aave and such. But there's a few things. So let me see if I can collect some thoughts here. So firstly, I think that what a lot of the world, and this was only recently introduced to me too, but I think what a lot of the world will never ever be able to properly understand or envision or value or grasp at all is disruption theory. And disruption theory is a weird thing where I'll probably do a terrible job at explaining this, but in traditional like thinking, to compete you have to be 10x better or 10x cheaper or something like that, right? But there is another aspect to how you can compete in the world, and that is it comes down to access, and you can just be 10 times more accessible. And usually, when a technology kind of goes through this route, it's usually very shit. Like, like a disruption theory asset is not a better or cheaper or in any ways like more viable asset or technology at all. It's usually way shitter to use, way more expensive, way harder or more complicated. But what it does is that's the reason why someone would use it is just due to that disruption theory of democratization. And I think all of crypto is this. I think Bitcoin is this. I think Ethereum is very much this. And I think disruption theory is not able to be valued in any way, unfortunately. But there's a lot of 0 to 1 disruption theory stuff that has kind of taken the world by storm, and people still don't see or feel it. But that's why some things are so extremely successful. And to put this in the context of crypto, just the fact that like every single human being with an internet connection has access to it alone is a value that cannot be quantified, but is much more valuable than what meets the eye. And it could be just my claim, but I truly think there's more to that than majority of the world can see. So I think that disruption theory plays a massive part in the quote unquote overvaluation of crypto, specifically Ethereum, because it disrupts in so many ways, and it disrupts what is so fundamentally crucial to the system, and that's value. And it's very hard to abstract that. So that's one thing I would say. The other thing I would say is that all assets are inherently capped. There's an upside on everything. Like if Apple keeps going up to 5 trillion, 10 trillion, like at one point, like, it's just the reward's not even there anymore. You kind of just hold it like passively or whatnot. And naturally, the newer generation or people that aren't as wealthy, that they don't even look at this asset. Like it could be completely safe. It could do a very good return and whatnot, but there's no growth. There's exactly right. I think that Ethereum kind of is doing the right thing, because whether anyone realizes it or not, probably not even me, I think it's taken a path that makes it kind of valuable to every single asset that is going to go through a growth stage, whether that be an application, a business, an L2, another network, or whatever. Ethereum is ultimately going to position itself in a way to provide sustainable value accrual, or somewhat designed to that next growth asset or industry. And that could, on a long enough time frame, make it the only viable kind of constant perpetual asset that accrues value. I don't know. That's obviously speculation. I don't even know if I communicated that properly with what's in my mind trying to say that. But it almost like took a step back and just became the de facto network, or like the next internet per se, right? Like there's businesses that there's micro-SaaS businesses that launch on the internet and they make 10K a month, and then there's fucking Facebooks that are making billions and billions of dollars of revenue. They're all doing it on the internet, and the only constant there is the internet. But the internet itself doesn't capture any of that value. The protocol doesn't capture any of that value. It's all gone to the companies. And I think in this new era, the protocol provides the network itself provides some really needed kind of primitives, such as provenance, especially in the world of AI, such as censorship resistance, especially in the dystopia that we're going into, that will always be valuable to everything that is going to now happen on this new internet. So by just doing that, it remains relevant constantly and in demand. Now, I don't know, obviously I'm a big proponent of ETH because I think that it's got the right ethos, it's got the right type of focus on the right things when it comes to value and finance and how to do it in the world sustainably. And sustainable value accrual will always go back to Ethereum, in my opinion. I could definitely be wrong on this, but that's kind of like a bit of a feeling space of mine as to why I think like ETH is the one that's doing it kind of right. And then to talk about alt L1s, obviously the argument is like, why couldn't an alt L1 get to, the same position as Ethereum? So I don't know. I usually just left curve these network effects. I think that ETH does it in a way that I respect and I like. I've obviously been very close to the development of Ethereum for the past 8 years, and I've talked to even core devs and some really, really core contributors of clients and apps and everything, and just the mindset behind how this building is happening and the ways that they look at it. They very much value being protected against nation state attacks. They very much value how strong and resilient they want to, and infragile they want to make this network. They take new Web3 approaches, like they take new ways of thinking to fix the obstacles that they have. Whereas I don't really see this with Alt L1. I think a lot of them still use a lot of Web2 mindset towards fixing, or they fall short, or they sacrifice things the wrong way. And I guess my best take on this is like no one really knows. I don't think even like EF or Justin Drake, who I think has a great signal on this, by the way. No one really knows how it's going to play out. I just think that everyone who's a big proponent of Ethereum with what it's doing right now, they're just taking the same bet that in the feeling space of how it's going forward, that's the most sustainable way to continue to remain relevant and accrue value and provide value. So I don't know if I answered your question or not. I don't know if I just made a whole bunch of listeners bearish as fuck on Ethereum. But yeah, I will leave it at that, I guess.
No, man, I think I've been doing that perfectly well every time I come on the pod, but like making people bear, at least putting them to sleep when it comes to this. But no, that was again a fantastic answer. I think just to pick up on what you're saying about, like, you sort of feel that Ethereum is doing the right things. It's going to be that asset that accrues value in perpetuity. So to take the other side of that, what would you be looking for if you had a thesis on ETH, which I guess most of us who hold ETH do have some kind of thesis, like whether that's being a bit generous or not, but you must have some idea of like why you've bought it. So would the canary in the coal mine for like that not playing out, would that be something like, devs stop building, stop deploying? You start to see it in those statistics of, maybe Solana's development activity starts to overtake Ethereum. Is that the kind of thing that you would look for to be like, shit, maybe I'm wrong about this?
Ironically, no. The one canary for me would actually, it wouldn't be like competition or like even devs stop building per se. It actually might be a little bit related to devs stop building, but for a different reason. A canary of mine would be if somehow through research there was a way that a core value proposition of economic security and provenance and censorship resistance could be provided without the core Ethereum network at the center of it. That would be a canary for me. So if there was some innovation in tech or even along the roadmap that would make the Ethereum network itself, the mainnet, redundant in providing those particular primitives, that would be somewhere where I think I would be like, re-justifying my thesis, if that makes sense.
It does, I guess, because it completely writes off like any attacks from Solana. You can just basically rebut them with that and say, well, you guys have chosen a different set of values to build by, and therefore you'll never assail Ethereum on that level of decentralization and security and like ability to validate, basically.
Yeah, but if the network itself suddenly had a risk of being redundant to still achieve these things, even within the Ethereum ecosystem, ironically, if somehow something came to be that would write off the need for the asset or the network in a certain way to achieve censorship resistance and decentralization and infragileness and whatnot, that would be more concerning to me. I'm not too concerned about alt L1. Like, in all honesty, I think there's a lot of noise around Solana. I think they've come a long way. I think they've done a great job, especially when it comes to community and such. But there's still so much behind the scenes. Solana probably has a lot of problems that it doesn't even know it has, or if it does know it has, it doesn't broadcast at all. And they're going to hit so many of these in the future. And I just don't like the way that it's, once again, the ethos is built. My one gripe with Solana, well, I have two gripes, but my one technical gripe is I feel, and this is once again a feeling space, which someone on Twitter, if they listen to this and they're Solana fan, they'll be like, you can't prove that. But I feel like they just take Web 2 approaches to fixing things. They are not like, like they were getting spammed earlier this year in April. The network was getting absolutely destroyed, and like you would have to go through like 10 transaction failures to get one through. You wouldn't even be able to put a transaction through on a normal wallet. You would have to use some Telegram bot, and you would even pay a fuck ton of gas anyway or whatever. And it's all because they don't have a proper fee market, because they don't want to have that game theory behind whatnot, like consensus and shit. And like their approach to fixing that was this new quality of stake thing where validators would be able to deem spam and kind of like accept certain transactions in or not accept certain transactions in, and like it is a very Web 2 approach to like a DDoS type of situation. It's not a free market approach. They're not free market maxis. They're not like that's like one example of why I'm not too aligned with Solana, and also not too stressed about it as a competitor directly to ETH-L1, because in my opinion, and my experience, you should never go against the market. Like, the market is the market. It's the one force that will push everything. And if you always build for the market to dictate something, whether it's something as small as like your interest rate is market based versus versus governance or protocol based, that is better, right? And all the way to how your consensus comes to completion, or even the incentives behind validation and such. It should always be a free market thing. It should always have game theory behind it. And I just think that like Ethereum is the only one that does it in that ethos.
Nice. I've just got a question just around like L2s. I've been pretty vocal about like my biggest gripe with ETH is just the L2 roadmap, because similar to what you're saying before, is like something that could be a threat to mainnet is like if the value accrual goes to the L2, let's say that, and that's due to apps are being built on it. Let's take Base, for example. Like if Base becomes super successful and then Base decides, well, I've already got the network effect, I've got all of these users, I've got all of the apps, why do I need to settle on L1? I can just build out this L2 as being an L1 per se. And I think Blast did that recently, where they decided that they're going to just be like a Blast L1 chain or something to that effect. But do you see that as a potential risk? Like if L2s in the future decide that settling on mainnet's too expensive, I'd rather just do something different, and then take the users and the applications away from ETH mainnet.
It's a good question. I don't think they will ever choose to do that because it's too expensive. I think that it's always more expensive to be an L1. Like,
true.
Security is expensive. Yeah. So it wouldn't be the cost. And ironically, that's an argument for ETH. it's it's very expensive to maintain a decentralized validator network. It's very hard to get past that hill as an L1. No L1s have done it. Solana's scratching the surface. Like I think the expense argument is in favor to L2s remaining L2s. One thing, ironically, the FUD that I see majority of is quite the opposite. It's that L2s can abuse the fuck out of how cheap, like
No one is.
can
Yeah.
retain majority of the value being happening on L2s and not pass it on to the L1. And to that, I actually say something I was talking about recently at an Oz Builders meetup last week. They were asking about, like, are L2s the ETH killer because they're going to steal all our value? And I think Ethereum is doing something that every startup is doing. I actually tweeted this out after my talk. It's just sacrificing revenue for CAC right now, which is customer acquisition costs.
Mm-hmm.
But its customers are basically L2s and L2 users. And the reason it's doing this is because it's creating a market where it no longer makes sense to be an alt L1. Like, if you try and compete as an alt L1, you're automatically at such a disadvantage from the bootstrapping cost and the cost of operation and the liquidity wind up and everything, that it just makes so much sense to be an L2. And it's pivoting the market to a way where it's like L2 versus L2. And ironically, it's now Ethereum as the base layer kind of being solidified. Do I think that in a long enough time frame, L2s won't provide value to Ethereum? So sorry, just to finish that thought, I think in the meantime, it's great actually to have this problem. To have L2s be a very profitable business and a very sustainable business and be able to launch on Ethereum and bootstrap easier than an L1 and inherit security easier than an L1 at cheaper than an L1, and get access to liquidity easier than an L1 is bullish. It chokes competition. In a long enough time frame, is it bearish for the ETH L1? I don't think so, because there's a few things that go into this. I think, firstly, I think that Ethereum L1 has scaled, right? It definitely has. Blocks are still being filled on L1. Like, it's not like blocks are empty. That's why gas fees are low. Gas fees are low because the blockchain has scaled. Like, POS scaled it a bit, and blobs like 4844 scaled it a lot more, where it basically changed DA and blocks. And basically it takes time for that new area that it scaled to fill up with demand. So demand will come back in, even on L2s, as more L2s launch. Like, Sony just launched an L2, and as base keeps increasing, it's like MGAS or whatever, and as that demand keeps filling in, because L2 usage has like 4 to 5x this year. L2 liquidity has like 4 to 5x this year, and users have like gone up, and applications have gone up, and everything's like going crazy on L2s, and they're settling the most amount of transactions that they ever have done to Ethereum. And Ethereum gas is the lowest it's ever been, and people are able to still use mainnet and fill out all the blocks. So it's definitely scaled, like, that argument aside. And now it's just a bet that, like, yeah, absolutely, it needs to scale because it needs to allow for new demand to come in. Once that demand comes in, suddenly you'll see that Ethereum starts getting expensive again, because people are fighting for that block space, because now it's become saturated, that's been filled up. And then when that happens, it'll scale again. And I actually predict that it will go through another inflationary period when it scales again, waiting for that even more wave of demand to come in. So I think it's like trickling up to expanding and scaling its L1 in line with overall demand. And really, I foresee that as long as there is, it really comes down to apps being built. That's my take. Like, the more apps are built on L2 that can attract more users, you will see that thresholds will get hit on L1, both on blobs and block space. And then suddenly the L1 starts making a lot of revenue again. and then it will need to scale again, and then the same problem happens again. So it all comes down to, getting more users on and scaling accordingly. That's my take. And my take is that it is bullish actually for the L2s to be extremely cheap for those reasons said. So I think like choking out any competition of an alt L1 is definitely great. And fees do tend to trend down to zero in any market. So it's inevitable. I think that's why the whole ETH is money meme is quite like it's left curving a very deep thought out thesis where the only retained value is somewhat of a monetary premium, and that monetary premium comes because it is like the only asset that can provide certain values that everyone in the world will eventually need, and that should spill over at scale in a long enough time frame. Like that's basically the left curve of that thesis.
Nice. I actually read a cool tweet the other day, and it actually kind of changed my mind a little bit on how I saw ETH, and it was that when you versus Solana, like the infra that ETH's building is very like doomsday World War III type level, where like if we are looking for a decentralized money or decentralized network that can sort of work in any environment, the infra that ETH's built out enables that a lot more than, let's say, Solana, which is basically like Amazon Web Service sort of level servers that you've got to end up running in order to maintain the network. So I do think that that's probably severely undervalued relative to the other L1s.
Yeah, and I think like I'm generally quite a doomer actually. Like I don't have a very perspective outlook on the world. So I think that's probably like inherently why I'm so attracted to something like this. I do foresee a very dystopic future of sovereignty and freedom being taken away in every aspect, including finance, including like a lot of things. So that's also why I think that like I'm so attracted to the way that Ethereum is building as opposed to anything else. Like to give you the quickest like answer is like Tornado Cash literally got nation state attacked. The developers are like they're fucked. Like everything's fucked. They took down the front end. Like Fed seized it, this and that. But you can still get an OFAC censored, blacklisted transaction through Tornado Cash within like a minute settlement, right? Like even sooner, probably like within 20 seconds of settlement. But whereas Bitcoin, right? Everyone says Bitcoin is so amazingly decentralized and censorship resistant. If you have an OFAC censored transaction on Bitcoin, it actually takes you quite some time to get that through because a lot of miners are enforcing these OFAC censors, and mining is obviously like this is a whole topic of its own, but it's obviously economies of scale lead it into a certain direction.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Bitcoin is not censorship resistant on a long enough time frame, whereas Ethereum will remain to be.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Just to, I wanted to chime in on something you mentioned earlier, Dark, on the valuation of ETH, and looking at like price to earnings. But I think one thing that I don't think a lot of people sort of take into account when evaluating gas tokens, essentially for any sort of layer one, is that there's the cost to compute, which is your cost to operate essentially, but then there's also the cost of security as well for the chain. So I think like looking at it sort of with blinders on, only looking at like fees and revenue, sort of like discounts the amount of money that's required in order to maintain security on the network, which I think needs to then roll itself into its sort of valuation. And if you looked at like Visa and MasterCard, like ETH, it would probably be like the most equivalent relative valuation trade that you would do. Like ETH still trading under both of those in terms of market cap. So I think if you were to try and value it, it's not just purely, well, how much revenue am I making? It's more, what's the cost to secure the network? What is the cost to operate? Plus the speculation premium that comes from any sort of cash flows that ETH may be generating too. But yeah, that was just my little 2 cents. Sticks. How you doing, man?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. Sorry for the late entry.
That's right. Do you
That's
have
all right.
some questions for our
Yeah,
esteemed guests?
yeah. So my question's around how you would arguably say if ETH does go up, because I heard you speak about Pepe before, and Pepe is probably like the one coin that I think actually has the potential to do like an insane run at like the Pico top, like similar to what Sheeb did, like add like, I don't know, like something crazy, like $10 billion in a single day into its market cap. Do you think that people should be that are bullish ETH? Because I know like a lot of the ETH native people, they hate meme coins. Like a lot of, you know, the builders and the .eth. So like there's like the portion that love meme coins, then there's like the half that don't. Do you think it's just better if you're long Pepe? Because I personally would just be like balls deep Pepe, because if you look at the volume, it's always like in the top 5, and I personally would just buy it for this cycle at least over ETH as an outperformer. Obviously, you got the downside risks as well, but yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, yeah, like hard for me to argue. I got my big bag of Pepe.
Oh yeah, so yeah, yeah.
I think
Let's
like
go.
Good.
no,
Nice.
I'm
That
bullish
answers
as
that
fuck
question.
on Pepe and memes in general. Like
Yeah.
but the argument to objectively respond to that, it's not like a crazy argument that you're making. It's just market beta, right? Like you can just keep going
Yeah.
down that ladder, and the reasoning behind why you wouldn't is really just the personal circumstance and risk appetite and such situation. Like I can just say, like, why buy Pepe when you can buy Mog? Like Mog's gonna do multiple too. Like why buy Mog when you're gonna buy like this other like lower fucking token that could do even more? Well, like you
Yeah.
can just keep going down that risk curve, right? And keep getting beta on beta on beta. But like obviously there is a trade-off. Like you're gonna have significantly more vol. You're gonna have
Yeah, I like the
literally
volume. That was the main point of like why I looked at it. I always see it in Bybit as being like a top 3, top 4, not top 3, like top 5 outside of like BTC, Sol.
yeah,
And
it's
it just
always top. It's always
yeah.
top five. No, I'm bullish as hell, bro. Like I think Pepe is great beta. It is the best beta this cycle in my opinion. Not financial advice to anyone, but again, objectively against like my investment thoughts on that is, it's like yeah, but you know, some the ETF buyers don't have access to Pepe and they wouldn't want to even if they did, right? Like
Yeah.
there's different markets for different people. Why wouldn't you buy that? Is that answer, right? Like you're managing a couple $1 billion fund for LPs that are TradFi bros, like, and you throw it into Pepe, like they're gonna cut your dick off.
I don't know,
right?
man.
Like,
I'm pretty sure Larry Fink wants Pepe in his
bro, I fucking hope so, bro. Because like, pump my bags, right? Like, that's also why I built the IMF, because I actually think like these memes are like the best market beta this cycle, and they deserve to have like spot leverage and all these other things that like what more traditional beta like Maker and Aave and even L2 tokens, which I'm not very fond of, might have, right? But fucking memes don't. So like that was the gap I identified. So we're definitely on the same page with that one, man. Like, yeah, 100%.
You just mentioned L2 tokens. That's one of my favorite topics. Why are you not a fan of them?
So I think
we all hate L2s.
Most L2 tokens are they fuck their tokenomics. They got too involved with VCs and they got too like complex shit. There's one, like the only L2 token that I think is actually good is OP. And the reason for that is the way that they designed their network effect of like bootstrapping OP chains and OP chains paying to the OP token and also having governance to influence the OP stack and such. It's a nice flywheel. Yeah. They also did their retroactive airdrops really well. I think that they're really good, well done. But again, I think like maybe as with any first cycle token, high float, low FTV. Sorry, high FTV, low float token. Like, just not a it's not a good buy. Like, you don't want to, as an investment, pure investment. Like, you don't want to go into that. My take, not financial advice, of course. So I'm not too much of a fan of most of the L2s. I think their tokenomics are kind of flawed, at least in the short to medium term. I think L2 tokens might be very attractive next cycle or after that, but for now, like, I'm not that much of a fan.
I think that makes sense. I feel like
Yeah,
the
that's a good
idea
point.
behind an L2 token, like as a governance token, makes sense when Ethereum's quite scaled and like you want to be having some sort of influence on the L2 itself via governance decisions. But like at this stage in time, it's like probably not as great, and it's probably been somewhat value extractive. But yeah, I do like your point on OP being a good token because they actually have a genuine flywheel effect sort of built into that. Like Base is a Opstack chain too, isn't it?
Yeah, basis and the OP team is killing it. Like, honestly, I was not an OP fan until maybe a year ago. And I changed my mind. I was like much more on the ARB side. Like, I was like, Arbitrum's the better roll up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I think they're both great, but like OP definitely has done amazing, man. Like, Kane saw it. He said very early on, optimism is the one that's going to kill it, and
yeah,
he fucking called that because they are.
Yeah, nice.
I had a question. We seem to have this theory that we need some level of innovation for more retail participants coming into the market and creating liquidity events where everyone on this call, including me, make it. Where do you see, if you do see any new innovation coming, where do you see that being and what might that look like if you can see into the future?
Yeah, nice question. You guys are actually asking really good questions. It's entertaining. So, if I had to throw a dart, I would say social fi. I don't know why. Like, I can't really justify too much.
Wait, sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Like SocialFi, like
SocialFi. Okay, yeah.
Decentralized social media and social finance, like SocialFi apps and like decentralized social media platforms that have things built on top of them. Like, I think that is the most consumer native type of tangent that crypto has right now. I think that if someone can build, I think Friendtech was kind of like the scratching at the surface. You know,
Yeah.
it was trying to get there. Obviously, Friendtech has this whole thing around it, like fuck that up. But like, I mean, the idea, right? I'm pretty. I told myself early on this cycle, like, not to fade any SocialFi apps that start gaining traction. And yeah, I think like my take is consumer. Like, honestly, anything more consumer facing and more native to consumers as they are today, that can be like with the back end plugging into our decentralized ecosystem. That is what I would be bullish on in terms of innovation.
Nice.
There's obviously a lot of like sub things that I think will do absolutely great, and it's also why I think memes will do great. Like, memes are consumer. Like, ironically, everyone wants to make money off crypto. That's the number one use case. Like,
Yeah.
like make money, right?
Yeah.
And retail, they don't fucking come in at the top to buy Bitcoin. Like, some of them do, but like they come in at the top and they're like, holy shit, like I missed Bitcoin, it's 100K. What fucking like other scam cryptocurrency, because it's all a scam. Like, what other scam is gonna fucking pump hard? And then they look at memes, right? Like, that's their take. Like, everything's a meme coin, and I think memes are like consumer native because of that. But in terms of actual applications, I think social media is the most like well-known internet-y type of thing right now. Like, the only thing anyone ever does on the internet is socialize in different forms. So I think if there's some SocialFi app that can capture some like actual retail, that like they do it in a cool way, that should do this. I also have another overarching theory, and sorry if I'm like talking so much on this.
No,
it's good. It's good. I'm loving it.
Yeah. I have an overarching theory, and this is like something that I've been saying to like the people I work with a lot. It's the in the future, more people will be onboarded into crypto through earning crypto to do things than from buying it to make money. I think the killer in the future, like if you can work somehow or contribute somehow and make an income, right? If you can do that on your phone, like that is a huge killer use case that is being like faded right now with crypto. And maybe it's just hard to have a sustainable earn model, but if you can like contribute to something like not in a technical way, like you can be like the most dumb retail motherfucker and download an app on your phone and do something every day and get paid in like something actually valuable like USDC or even ETH or something. If there's an app that can create that economy, that is a fucking killer use case in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you guys actually made some good points, and I think like the next wave of like actual good narrative or use case in crypto won't actually require a token. So I think like whatever's being built, sort of like what Palm Fund did, like it actually something that's built, it just doesn't need a token, because I think the whole market's just sick of this whole token narrative, and everyone's just dumping their tokens. So I'm pretty sure the next trying to think of the right word, next implementation in the market won't actually need a token. And that's why I'm just bullish meme coins, because like no one wants to buy the FDV Ponzi's. No one with size at least wants to buy them.
Well, Pump
yeah.
Fund was like a cool example of like people using the app not because they were speculating on a token airdrop, but because they actually wanted to use the app. But if you like took the second derivative of that, they were using the app because they thought the app was going to make them money, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
it was like the best. It wasn't like using that app. And it's like why people use BonkBot and like the bots as well. It's like you have a slight edge by using it to make money, as opposed to like the OG way of
But
finding
it's still trading, right? Like there's still risk involved. I think that's one level of abstraction away from the real future of consumer, which is like guaranteed like payment for X effort, right? Like there's no, like you're not out here trading, you're just doing something, whatever the fuck that is. You're putting in effort or time or attention, and you're getting paid to do it. Like that's the one level of abstraction difference, I think.
So basically, we need like Fiverr, but or like a non-ad model of YouTube or something where like the people can create something or do something based off of something that they can do, but like get paid in crypto. Like it's
you need but the thing, I think like creating the marketplace for services is good for in real life services. But my thing that I have in my head is like some protocol has to have some online function done within it that creates value for some other cohort of people or even the users themselves. And the users that do that function get paid to do that. That's like basically my idea of like some sort of consumer thing which people actually give a fuck about. And that's kind of why I think SocialFi is like scratching at that surface, because I think like, naturally the entire world gives a fuck about like social media and they're getting paid through it and like the whole attention economy and content creator bullshit. But like if it can be done digitally, the effort and the goods and services are fully digital, not like just a marketplace for like not like decentralizing Uber or Fiverr. Like that's a given.
Yeah.
So I think like my idea is like that type of thing. Yeah.
Maybe like an AI.
How do you?
Sorry, you go.
No, that's not good. I was just going to say on that idea at scale, how do you see NFTs fitting into all this? Or are they one and done? They're on the back burner now, never to be spoken about again.
As a fellow Remilio
NFTs
holder,
are a broad topic. NFTs are a broad topic. I mean, if you're talking about PFPs, like I don't know, like I think PFPs are they're kind of like consumer oriented, like you're part of online community. You have a token gated thing, which is also like your like fucking persona or whatever, and there's more to it. Maybe you can contribute to the community, get something back. So I think some NFT communities definitely have like done very well through the bear. Pudgy's, Doodles is doing great right now. Like I think Yuga might come back with a swing. Like I think so I think they have their place. But NFTs as a technical concept is going to be just a normal part of, like, you know, how ERC20 and like tokens is just a normal part of everything now, right? Like
Yeah.
so yeah, I think like it's a primitive that will always be here. NFT communities that exist in 2021, like they went through their wave. Like 99% died off. The ones that kind of retained value and community and attention and some level of worth are building, and I'll love to see one of them kind of achieve like their brand status, like become a decentralized brand with like users as equity holders or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I mean it's just one use case, right? So I'm definitely more bullish on NFTs than I think a lot of CT. I'm not like crazy bullish, don't get me wrong, but I don't write them off to zero.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's fair.
Nice. Dark, have you got any other questions you want to fire off?
Yes. Yeah, you read my mind. I want to ask the question that gives these guys a title for this podcast. Can Ethereum become the apex asset in crypto? I.e., can it flip Bitcoin in terms of its market cap?
My opinion, it can. So yes, I think it can. Will it? I don't know. And it really just comes down to me. The only thesis I have on Bitcoin is that like Bitcoin has achieved memetory value, not even monetary value. Like Bitcoin is an idea. You cannot kill an idea. Bitcoin is the revolution. Bitcoin is like it is the thing, and it's very hard. Like memes are just ideas, right? And even if the network itself is fundamentally flawed and on a circular path to being redundant, and the network is not even fully decentralized or captured in the future, right? Like, I don't actually think, like, I have mentally separated BTC, the asset, from Bitcoin, the network, a while back. Do I think Ethereum's network is it's already, in my opinion, significantly more valuable and whatnot in every way than Bitcoin's network? But the asset itself, from market cap values, I think it can. But I'm also going against my normal investment thesis of like ideas and memes and just like zero dependency type of assets perform better than assets with significant fundamentals. That said, my entire bet, like my entire net worth and life positioning, is that ETH flips Bitcoin. Like that is definitely, I am long ETH, short Bitcoin perpetually. Like, so overall, I hope so, and I think so, but it's not going to be an easy thing that some other ETH guys say, like Sasal. I talk to Sasal a lot. He's pretty dead set on ETH flipping Bitcoin as an obvious. But me, I don't think it's as obvious, but I do think it's very possible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
What do you think?
It sounds like you're Go on, mate.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you're mid-witting it, just like the rest of us, because you said normally you go with the left curve, but Ethereum has dragged you into this like middle of the curve thesis that it can somehow do it, and that's what we're all clinging on to, but it just doesn't seem to want to do it.
Maybe. I think it just comes down to, I think, like when it's all said and done, I think the most sovereign, permissionless asset wins. That's my take. The world that we're going into on a long enough time frame, permissionlessness is the only thing that's going to win, because like Bitcoin will be captured. The network will absolutely be captured, in my take. Now, if the asset separates itself enough fundamentally that it can live permissionlessly, which I don't really think it can, maybe it can. But if it's just an asset that you have to have permissions to access and transact and hold and whatnot, then that's my entire bet on ETH, flipping it. Like I said this to my co-founder all the time. I'm like, in a world where somehow regulatory authorities and whatnot capture have such a strong force on the ins and outs of the crypto world, and you can only be in crypto if you KYC or not. Non-KYC Bitcoin will be worth less than KYC Bitcoin, but non-KYC Ethereum will be worth more than KYC Ethereum. And that's like, it's kind of scratching the surface of my bet of like permissionlessness will win.
Because of Ethereum's use case over Bitcoin, essentially.
Because
Or the fact that you can use Ethereum in its like DeFi primitives
exactly.
permissionlessly.
Because of the utility behind being able to permissionlessly use this store of value versus not being able to. And that comes back to disruption theory, right? It's all about access. Like even like fucking AI agents are not going to like ask permission from anything, right? Some will, some like corporate AI agents will, but they're just going to want to go and do the thing, right? Like, so I think, that kind of comes back to the disruption theory where it's like the most accessible asset, the most sovereign asset, the most like permissionless, like autonomous asset will win.
Nice.
I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, actually. That's really interesting.
Interesting.
I like it. What do you think needs to change around ETH's narrative at the moment to finally put the bottom in on this thing?
This one I have a proper answer for.
Good. I'm keen.
Yeah. So the price needs to go up.
Let's go.
Bro, that is like the most fucking elite answer I could have anticipated from you. That price drive narrative is like, I'm so glad you said that. Fuck.
It's so true. It's so
I didn't want
true.
you to say like some essay on like this has to happen. Like, bro, spot on.
That is elite. Love it.
It just has to go up a bit, and people fucking will start to their minds will change.
It just has to not be a fucking cock for like a bit. That's all it has to be.
Yes.
So true. Oh my god.
Man.
I love the answer, honestly.
Yeah.
I was praying that you didn't say like some really long like thought out process on like
man,
why.
that's what I was hoping for, man. I want to be bullish on this thing again.
Do you know what I find interesting
But
though?
if it goes up, you will be.
Every time I'm bullish on it, the market nukes, so I'm scarred.
I was just going to say, especially in the bear market when we went from proof of work to proof of stake, and then we had all of these other upgrades. If you would have told me that ETH BTC was down only ever since September 2022, I wouldn't have believed you, because I would have thought that the price action and the current technology changes with ETH would have solidified it as like a better performer than BTC almost. So this like price action to the downside on the ETH BTC pair is quite surprising in my opinion. And I would never.
I think the entire market is in the same position, and I think that's why it happened actually. Like, like literally no one would have predicted this level of underperformance, and maybe that's why it happened. Like,
well, think about it. If you're not in, if you didn't buy Sol or like Sol meme coins or PEPE or BTC, just like those assets in general, like everything else you'd be feeling pretty shit on, I'd say, aside from like maybe a couple things. But like most people are allocated to like ETH betas, not PEPE, but like the actual tech betas and Lido, like your standard ones, you know, like previously, like last year, everyone sort of sat down, you know, built their thesis. I mean, I was like super bullish ETH. I didn't hold any of the betas, but like I had like a fuckload of ETH. Yeah. So like I understand it's fucking been, if like most people didn't pivot to Sol, and lucky like a few of the like 1L and Z were like very bullish Sol before I was. But yeah,
that was after being bullish ETH. I think like the bear market.
Yeah, I've always been bullish ETH. Yeah,
I think the bear market made everyone sort of go, "Yep, ETH is the best tech. ETH is like got everything." So then the positioning, to like Clouded's point, was like very ETH focused, and then the action that we've seen over the last 12 months has just been probably more a rotation out of that rather than anything else. And then the BTC ETF, like that's what drove BTC where it was, but then everything else is just more like rotationary out of like those other assets into things like Solana and meme coins. So that's my 2 cents.
I think it is weird because like it is you can be not bullish on ETH, but you can't be bearish. Like,
Yeah.
and anyone that is just wrong. Like, I know that's hard to say, but like you can be not bullish on ETH. Like, you can be like, yeah, I don't think it's going to do the best, but you can't be bearish. But on every other asset, and I think maybe Bitcoin is the only one that also has this sentiment, but on every other asset, you can be bearish. So that's the weird spot that it's in.
Clouded's like, you can't be bearish this asset, but I give you permission to absolutely doom post about all the others.
I mean, you know what? I actually agree with him in the sense that like being bearish ETH is like obviously you can be bearish ETH against something else. Like you could say like ETH BTC or like Sol ETH whatever. But like if in a true like altcoin like market, you want ETH to be actually going up and actually not just being cucked and like actually showing strength. Because like when it did go up, like earlier this year, everything like sort of pumped like pretty hard. Like you had like
After
tech
it
alt
went up.
actually. Yeah, after it went up, like you had like shit like Blur going up, like you had shit
and
like
Six,
even Lido went up.
Your whole narrative, your whole like investment thesis before is like, I'm just gonna own Pepe. Like you're still
Yeah.
bullish ETH, bro. Like you know, you're still long.
100%.
Exactly
You're
right.
still long ETH. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's an ETH native token.
Yeah,
So
it's like even though like I talk shit on ETH a lot, but
like you want it to go up because you want alts to go up. It's like
I own
signals
a lot of ETH
very strong
assets.
alt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I own plenty.
If you're bearish on ETH, like you literally should not be in this industry. Like there's no reason for you to hold any coin. Like you should just leave if you're actually bearish. But you could be not bullish. You could be like going down the market betas like Six and such. But to be bearish ETH is kind of such a weird chance to take.
I think there's like maybe you can be bullish on the network, but maybe short-term bearish on the token. In terms of like positioning of like where the tokens like as from a trader's perspective, but like you can't be bearish on Ether network. Like over a long enough time frame, ETH wins. But like in the short term, like just with positioning and you know the amount of funds that have ETH related assets, etc. L2s raising at whatever valuations. Like there's so many different things, different ways you can allocate towards ETH without it actually being ETH the token. That I think that's what makes it. That's what's made it like the cucked coin, because I would have thought that like a lot of people that wanted to be bullish ETH, they bought Lido because Lido was like the play. But then everyone bought Lido, so then the only thing, and then Lido was emitting quite a lot of tokens over the last 12 months. So like they're pretty good now, but like a lot of these coins were allocated to earlier on, and then when everything else pumped, they sold those coins to buy the thing that was pumping because that's what humans do. But I don't think you can be bearish ETH the network at all. And I think like being bearish ETH tokens probably like not the position to be in right now, considering where it's sitting now. I think it's like the opposite.
Yeah, I'm hoping that you know the pendulum swings back, and definitely this is hopefully the bottom on like ETH comparative to the rest of the market. Like you can hope, right? Or you can cope, but yeah, I mean
you can hope
like it's
cope.
crazy. ETH is like touching 2K, like it's basically at 2K.
Yeah.
When like and like the sentiment is in the gutter, like it's so over. Like, are we actually gonna like is ETH even gonna be valuable? Like it's crazy. But like in hindsight, all these other years, in the bull market and such, it's like 2K ETH was such a fucking obvious buy. Everyone's like fucking like but
for
yeah,
some
man,
traders confluence right now, it's the 200-week price just above it, and it's the yearly open. So I feel like if you're looking for an important level to buy, this is it.
Yeah, and the weekly RSI, because I do look at RSIs, has not been this low since January 2023, which is just after the FTX collapse, which is kind of nuts though.
I also think the fact that it's been vertically downwards ever since the ETF approval might be a good indication to buy as well.
That's true.
ETH Anonymous roundtable right here. All cooking.
Oh god.
I just want ETH to go up because I really want Pepe to go.
I want my pudgies to go up.
I mean, yeah, I want my pudges to go up as well. Like, yeah, like I have lots of like, I think like the NFTs, like the good ones, like Penguins, Romelio, like Milady, and then like
Tubby cats.
and then like Pepe and Mog. Like, I want ETH to go up because I want to see these pump again.
Yeah.
I like the vibes on the TL when those coins pump.
Whereas if it does go up, we know who to thank. It's clouded.
It's clouded.
For
100%.
This
Yeah.
podcast can mark
Nah, you made some really good
Pico
points.
bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, does this podcast mark the bottom, or is this
Oh,
another
dude.
Sassel and we go lower?
Oh,
Because
dude, Sassel did not mark the bottom.
That was the top.
Actually,
was the-
Sassel, we did actually pump a bit because the ETF. It went down a lot and then
We
it
marked
pumped.
we marked the top on the Sassel pod, so let's
Yeah.
I actually named the title of this on Twitch, putting in the bottom on Ethereum. Like,
It has to
before we
be. The
started
sentiment's
so.
that bad.
It has to be it.
Yeah.
Oh,
is there anything from your perspective, Clouded, that we may not have touched on that you maybe want to rant about or talk about? Yeah, anything in general across your mind that you can think of?
I mean, to be honest, this was super comprehensive,
Yeah.
like podcast. Like, you guys ask great questions. It's basically everything that like gets to the core of like most thought processes of the space and what's popping. Like, I think like the only other like overarching thing I'll cover that I've talked about recently is basically like I don't think crypto is the same as what it was like previous cycles. I think ultimately the market's changed and the participants have changed. Institutional liquidity's in, even projects are much more corporatized. Like, it's just definitely the changing of times. And I think we're in a weird spot in crypto where this is the end of the beginning and the beginning of the like I wouldn't say the end, but like the middle, the real middle part of maybe this industry. Like, ETH is turning 10, and Bitcoin is turning 15 or something, 16. And like, yeah, like that's pretty much like early majority is already here. Sorry, early adopters already here and gone. Like, early majority is about to pile in, because the flows are open to institutions. Like, nations are starting to get interested. Like, so I think it's a frictional like change in the entire industry. We're at a point where it's definitely like once we pass this little curve, I don't think there's no going back. Um, and then we're going to be stuck in this like middle section of this entire growth industry. We're almost at like the beginnings of social media on the internet, when
Yeah,
the
I see what
internet
you
started going parabolic. Like, yeah, I think, and like global monetary policy and fiscal policy and like and dystopic like fucking nation like policies are coming in, and like crypto's kind of finding its like use case with that too. So yeah, I definitely think there's actually this cycle is like a pivotal cycle where it's the changing of times. I think crypto matures significantly this cycle more than it did any other cycle, and then maybe for the next like 2 decades, 3 decades, it's like doing its thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's puts us in the middle of the road. We've missed out on the golden ticket for helicopter money, and now we have to battle it out against the suits. Nice. I really love that position I'm in. Fantastic.
I know. I wish I wasn't playing Minecraft and instead going on the internet and buying Bitcoin, but that's a whole nother story.
Maybe a good little segment to end is just some crazy price predictions that you might have, Clouded and Dark, for ETH, and whether it comes this cycle or next.
Yeah, like, what do you guys think about this cycle in like next year or 12 months or whatever?
$600.
Return to value,
Bro,
which is
bro,
0.
Solana, right?
Bro,
Solana.
don't say that. You mean
Yeah.
Solana, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We're trying to put the bottom in on it, right? So I've got to be
okay.
massively
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Just
Keep
pull
shit
me out of
on
my misery at this stage. Jesus.
Oh man, price predictions never hit these. I actually think like I think this cycle doesn't go as long as some people are saying. I think we top
Interesting.
out probably like Q1 next year. I think we top out.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and price prediction wise, I don't know, maybe BTC like between 120 to maybe 170, somewhere in that range. Like I think, and
Nice.
the ETH probably, I would say probably like 10, 12K, honestly.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I base that off of like the ETH BTC ratio getting pumped fucking hard. And if Bitcoin's like 150 and
Yeah.
ETH is like 0.08, like that's kind of like
Yeah.
what I base it on. And yeah, like if there is like a pendulum swing back to ETH because of how fucking beat it's been, like I do expect it to outperform relatively. You know, obviously it's a bigger asset, but so yeah, that's my takes on the big things. I think PEPE goes to 40 bill market cap.
It's
Yeah,
fucking
I'm
low.
thinking something. No, I think something similar as well. That's what I was sort of.
yeah, I'm probably gonna sell my PEPE bag at 40 bill and just fucking walk away, man. I don't care if it runs to 69. I don't even know if, like, honestly, I say that, but even if it's like less than that, I'm gonna be shaking to sell that shit. So I don't know.
Nice.
So you think
Yeah.
the cycle's not done? It's just going to happen very quick and fast, probably like post-election.
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah, no, cycle's definitely not done. I think that the news cycle never even came for crypto. Like the real pico tops are during news cycles. I think news cycle happens when I almost think institutions and shit are gonna FOMO into the top this cycle. And that's our exit liquidity. Like it's just
I
gonna
mean, they've been
trickle down.
buying the top as lately as well, and Bitcoin Ware's just been dumping on them.
It's actually
Yeah.
And also the flows, and I don't want to say negative because that's probably the incorrect term, but we've had some outflows from some of the ETFs at these levels for BTC,
Bro,
which I thought was
outflows are
Influencers
gonna
are just
mark
as
a
bad
lot.
as retail. They they
Yeah.
buy top, sell bottoms. That's why
No,
I always
they're-
think flows are like counterintuitive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
flows are
yeah.
stupid. Don't count. Don't even.
If you actually look back, like the largest inflow days have always marked the tops.
Top.
And the largest outflow days have always marked the bottoms.
But,
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely subscribe to that. Except Larry Fink's ETFs, they seem
Just
to be
zero.
diamond. They're diamond hands. All credit.
These
to 'em.
clients are chats.
Yeah.
Who would have thought fucking BlackRock and Fink would save us? Like,
Oh, dude.
I know. Out of everyone, bro.
I know, it's crazy.
That's like the saddest thing is like we come into this industry all about like decentralization and all of that, and like everyone's just like clamoring over like Larry Fink buying our bags.
I know the only
Yeah.
way we can get to like 100K is through like fucking TradFi, even though we despise them.
Yeah, 2017, 2021, it's F the suits, and now 2024, it's like suits. Why aren't you
Please.
buying? Like,
Yeah.
help us out. Come on, this is terrible.
The literal narrative for like all the ETFs is like, okay, good, like BTC ETF, more liquidity for us, like ETH ETF, more liquidity for us from suits. We're like literally so reliant on them, but either way, anyways.
I think the best thing about the ETH ETF is like majority of the outflows have been from the grayscale stuff, and they didn't have as many. They didn't have as much supply as they did on the BTC side. So like I think looking at the numbers the other day, like they're almost out. Like or like they're not, when I say out, they're still gonna have some, but they're nowhere near as like big as they were before. So like the outflows should be slowing down.
I think the most bullish thing about the ETH ETF is like not as many funds have like allocated to it. So like if there was a shift, like
and
the
it
price
came
would
out
go up
during
because
summer.
it's like the same thing with Sol, like in the bear market. It's like no one was really allocated to it. And it's like sort of the same thing if there was a risk on shift with ETH. No one in TradFi is really allocated to it. So
That's true. Yeah.
September 18th. Watch it.
just gotta hope those foundation fuckers dumping.
End of September. Just watch. Things will change.
End of September.
Full moon.
I feel like the timeline's like so bearish right now.
Yeah, sentiment is fucking
Like even Bob
like,
Lucas is like not flip flopping, but he's like sort of questioning himself. Like even though he's sort of staying bullish, I don't know.
No, I honestly think this sideways, like this year has been pretty fucking brutal. Like I've been in crypto a
It's been
long
brutal if
time.
you've been trading it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like it's pretty fucking bad. Like the chop was really bad, and like it's been so long. Like this is proper time capitulation. Like
Yeah.
I think
the last. Oh, sorry, you go.
no, I was gonna say I think this is like actually ironically one of the harder years in crypto because it's just how fucking like long it's been going on. But I don't expect it to go on for much longer. I do think we're coming to the end of this.
Oh, the timeline's about.
To be
Mate,
completely
when I see
fair, last year was very similar.
it went for
because-
longer, didn't it?
No. Last year we
Yeah,
opened.
last year was very similar. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
exactly the same.
if you look at the PA from last year, we opened like at like 1500 at like in January. No, sorry, we opened a little bit earlier to be fair. So we had a little pump on New Year's, and then we pumped up to like 2K by April, and then we came all the way back down to 1500 again, which was like the mid-January level by October, and then we pumped from there. Whereas like this year, it was December. Like we've been at the same price since December last year on ETH. It's fucked. So
But
yeah, it's very similar.
I think that I do remember last year I was like I had my bags and everything, but I was sort of just like ready to. At this point last year, I remember I was just like, might as well just go play some video games and just touch grass and shit, because like nothing was really happening and it was sort of just like getting tiresome. And I've got that exact same feeling right now where I'm just like the last week or so I've just been like exercising, playing video games, and it's just like I've just been like sort of locked out, which makes me think it's nearly.
You should be buying.
Yeah, you should be like fucking being locked in because everyone's like touching grass or capitulating or whatever.
Cool. That was really good having you on, Clouded. It was some awesome chats there.
Nice ETH
have
talk
to
that I
listen
haven't really
back to
good
this.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And you guys asked some great questions. Like I actually enjoyed talking about these things. So thanks for having me, and it was great to meet Dark Forest and Six. So yeah.
Fuck yeah, nice to meet you too, bro.
Thanks for coming on, Cloud.
Yeah, man,
I'm
thanks for
glad.
coming on.
I'm glad you followed through and you decided to answer literally all the tough questions possible, giving you a pretty fried. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Appreciate it, man. Very good.
Cool. All right, should we run the outro?
Yeah,
One all
let's do it.
San.
Oh, thanks. No, we got to thank Dark for coming on. He's the unofficial 6th Brotato member, so
appreciate the bearish sentiment that will hopefully mark the bottom.
Just doing my duty, guys.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate you once again. We will be uploading this to YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate if you do. We're very close to hitting monetization if you guys want to know. So yeah, we'd appreciate that because we're doing this from the for free because we just like doing it. But if we can hit that would be great. But yeah, really appreciate everyone for tuning in. For the few that did, and yeah, thanks Clouded, thanks Dark, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.